So Ofer Klein. So if you're not familiar with Ofer or you missed something about Ofer so far, Ofer is the CEO and the co-founder of Reco. And besides that, he's a former Israeli pilot, a serial entrepreneur with a vast experience in building and growing go-to-market teams with SaaS companies in the US. He's passionate about leading solutions for the distributed workspace. And with that, Ofer, the screen is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gidi. Hi, everyone. Super happy to be here. Thank you for having us. My name is Ofer Klein, co-founder and CEO of Reco, as you heard, based in Central Florida, originally from Israel, Tel Aviv. Let me share with you a little bit about the high level of the company, and then sharing some insights about SaaS security in general. How can AI help? And then throughout this meetup, you will hear more details about the AI from Tal, my co-founder and CTO of the company. So the company, we started it 3 years ago. It's a US-based company where the AI and technology is based in Israel. My background is I flew helicopters in the Air Force. Then I had another startup after several years in the Israeli defense electronic area. I started another company, moved to the US 6 years ago, and started this company with Gal and Tal 3 years ago. Co-founders, just in high level, Tal will share more about himself, coming from the Israeli FBI, where the main story behind the company is that the challenge they faced is basically the bad guys started to encrypt data, and you cannot read this data in order to understand hostile activities. And basically the solution that was founded there by Tal and his team was a metadata graph that analyzes millions and millions of interactions. And just by understanding those interactions, who is communicating with whom and how, they could effectively understand what is happening, when and where. They won the Israeli Defense Award with the president, and now we basically took that concept into helping the modern enterprise to securely use SaaS applications and the SaaS environment in general. We are backed by these investors, as you see on the screen, raised about $40 million, and up to date from Insight Partners, Air Ventures, Bolsat, Angular, and a bunch of others. So let's start to dive deeper, and I'll have time to questions. So if you have any questions, please, or comments, please add them to the chat, and happy to interact either during the presentation or right after. So the SaaS environment has changed dramatically, where more than 95% of new software is written either on cloud or SaaS. A few years ago, the average was about 30 SaaS applications. Now it's more than 300. Actually, the record that we have with one of our customers is 11,000 apps in one company, which means this is exploding, and it's exploding because of the value it produces. So I am much more productive if I'm using those applications, especially now the new generation of generative AI applications. So why shouldn't I use it as a marketing, sales, or even a developer? And the other side of it is, if you do that without any governance, any visibility, any control, it introduces a lot of risk. And let me give you one example from a company we work with. It's a public company. Someone installed an AI app connected to their Zoom. So far, that's great. It transcripts all the call. You become much more productive. The problem was that because of misconfiguration in both the app, the AI app, and Zoom, these transcripts were basically exposed to the entire company. Pre-earning calls, board meetings, all of the fun stuff. And because of our system, basically they could understand of this misconfiguration and deal with it. So the challenge here is one element: you cannot block the company anymore. You cannot go back to on-prem because SaaS is there and it's exploding. And the other side, how can you do it in a much more responsible and governed way? Unfortunately, we start seeing the bad guys moving from attacking the cloud, attacking the devices. They are starting more and more rapidly to attack through this SaaS surface. And you see here a few examples. I'll just double click on one of them, and Tal will drill down even further. The MGM attack, where basically the reported outcome was $180 million in damage, in basically loss of income. And we know behind the scenes, it's more than $1 billion of loss of revenue. And we will touch on that, how and what happened there. The vast majority of those breaches are because of configuration. Basically, your doors and windows to your house are either open to everybody or not configured correctly. So it imposes risk. And the other part are the people, the users. People are actually logging in, using those systems, admins of those systems, and the combination of both of them is the holy grail. When you go into the AI apps, you see today, the last report was 76% of modern enterprises are using some form of generative AI as a strategic element of their business, which means it could be replacing my customer success. It could be providing better service. It could be accelerating processes or saving money. So now you have a new layer that is created in those environments that if this layer is breached, the business is impacted dramatically. Unlike a few years ago, if you say, okay, someone just breached my, I don't know, Adobe PDF documents, I don't really care. So the combination of using more and more, providing more value, and then the value impact once something bad happens is significant, attracts a lot of bad guys into this area, and this area is not well protected today. So if you look at the left side, cloud security like Wiz, Palo Alto, and others, you have endpoint devices, you have on-prem detection, network detection. The right side is still left behind today, and it's very early on in the journey of understanding what you have, being able to understand what is right and what is wrong, and then to prevent the data from being leaked, prevent this suspicious and risky access in a very effective way. Another interesting part that you find in SaaS, and you don't find it the same as other areas, is if I'm a security expert in a company, I don't even own those systems. So Amanda is the admin of Salesforce, Joe is the admin of Slack, someone else is the admin of Zoom or Workday, and now I need to go between all of these people and to understand what they do. Sometimes I don't even have access, and to understand what is right and what is wrong in a very effective way. So the challenge is not only to get access, is how do you operate it inside an organization without friction. So let's double click on the MGM incident. Again, super high level. Tal will double down on that in a much more detailed way in his presentation later in this meetup. So it started with a phishing attack or social engineering. By the way, this social engineering of I'm your friend, give me your password or something like that becomes more and more sophisticated, because if I'm using AI, I can really be your friend. I know everything about you from Salesforce, from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from many other places. And you can trust me much easier and give me either your credentials or anything that I need. They got in. The first thing they did is reset the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, basically the second device authentication. Once they did that, they moved on to create high privilege user, which means now I'm an admin of this system, and now I basically can do whatever I want. The next step was getting into the payment system and shutting it down. So if you think of MGM, how much money they make every hour, shutting down the payment system at the casino, hotels, whatever, is a huge impact on their business. Caesar Palace, by the way, paid $15 million, 15 after a few hours. And MGM said, no, I'm fine. And the impact was dramatic. So if you think of it, you have a few steps that the bad guys are moving through from MFA. You reset the password, you create an admin or high privilege user, your behavior is not normal, how can you track that across all of your main tools in a very effective way? And the answer is, as you can imagine, is AI and machine learning. So what Reco provides, and I will double down more on that in the next few slides, we understood that just doing it faster and better manually is not a little worse, it's just not possible. Because you have hundreds of apps, you have thousands of people. We have a company we work with, which is 750,000 people, thousands of different apps. There is no chance of doing that manually. How can I discover in a very effective way through a machine learning and AI engine, control, which means getting those alerts in near real time and understanding what is right, what is wrong, and then protect. Shutting those doors and windows to the house, which is configure your Salesforce correctly, understand if something is wrong and what, and basically who has access that they shouldn't have to those systems. So let me give you a few examples. These are just super high level things that AI can do. And again, Tal, the entire presentation is about the, as we call in Hebrew, the tachlis way of the tangible way of implementing that into the technology. From understanding who you are, I have Ofer logging into GitHub, and then Ofer logging into Salesforce, and another Ofer logging into Microsoft. Is it one person or three different people? How do you mesh those identities together through this graph? The second thing is understanding applications. The days of saying I have 50 integrations, 100 integrations, 200 integrations, yes, it's nice, but it's not even close to what I have. In a good day, it's going to be 10% of what I have. How can you effectively, automatically understand what I have in my organization? What is it? Is this an AI app? Is this sales app? Is this high risk, low risk? What is it? In order to take action, and then obviously to automate. And the last part I'm going to touch here briefly is the anomaly behavior. Some of you might know the term UEBA, which is basically understanding what, behavior analytics. And the old concept of UEBA was, I'm going to set rules. This is right. This is wrong. You have to work from the office. If you sent an email or you logged into the system at 3 a.m., obviously you're a hacker and something is wrong. And guess what? It doesn't make sense in remote work anymore, and it doesn't make sense in so many different SaaS applications. So something needs to understand what is a normal behavior, to learn, and then to adopt it into the controls in a very effective way. And I'll give you an example in one of the next slides from one of our customers. Again, Tal will double down more on the AI. So if you're interested on how could this be implemented, wait until the end of the meetup. It's going to be very, very interesting. So let's zoom into identities in the new world of SaaS. An identity used to be a person, Joe, or Mary, or whomever the person is. It could be he or she could be an employee or contractor. And now you're starting to have a new form of identities, which are machine identities. It could be an app. It could be a service account. You start seeing data flowing from app to app, from service account outside, etc., not only generated by people. So we understood that the AI needs to understand everybody, which is people as well as machine services, to understand their privileges. If you are the admin of 5 main systems, your impact on the company is much bigger than if you just joined the company yesterday and you have no access to nothing. So in the identity space, this is, by the way, what we do in the graph, continuously analyze who are those identities, what are they connected to, or who are they connected to, and take actions. Take action could be, you're an admin of Salesforce, you did not log in for 6 months, why do you still need the access, and automatically revoke it, for example. And this is a more tangible example of what can you do when you understand everything about an identity. So let's take this example of Justin Blair. You know all of the apps that he's using. You know all of the admin permissions this person has. In this case, this person is leaving the company and he still has admin access and starting, for example, downloading or deleting data. An example we have from one of our customers, a contractor that was basically an admin on Salesforce, moved out and basically started to work with a competitor. After about 6 months, he started to log in again to this Salesforce and touching data, downloading data, etc. So the first touch, in this case through Reco, is that you see that someone that shouldn't be there, that wasn't there for a lot of time, that left the company, is now accessing something he shouldn't. So the identity and access governance is all about reducing the attack surface on the identity, access, admins, etc. The second part of it, for those of you that work in public companies, SOX compliance actually requires to understand access all the time and over access as well. Today, in most of the companies, it's done manually, and through this process, basically, it is streamlined and automated. Let me give you an example of behind the scenes about the application space. So we talked now about identity from the human perspective, now from the machine perspective. So this is an example of how this is Google, and I connected a bunch of apps to Google. Between us, you could go to Google, you can search for it in your Google suite, and you will find it. Great. But one of your daughter companies is also using Microsoft. So there is a similar graph of those apps connected to Microsoft. And then you have a similar graph connected to Salesforce. Because I work in sales, I connected an app to Salesforce. I did not connect it to Google or Microsoft. The same thing, now you have the same element from the people perspective. And if you think about it iteratively, basically creating here the graph, the heartbeat of the company, that you can understand every person with all of the apps he or she has, and every app, all the people that are connected, all the pieces of data, etc., in one single pane of glass. So this is how the AI and machine learning are working behind the scenes. And then again, Tal will explain you more sophisticated stuff on how this is done and the implications. I will stop in a few slides for questions, so please add them to the chat, and I'll stop and answer them. So when you think of what you just saw in the graphs from the applications perspective, how can I know every app in my organization? What is it? Who is using them? And let's take it with the angle of AI apps. We have a very embarrassing question we ask on every onboarding. Do you know every AI app in your company and who's using it? And it's embarrassing because you cannot know. And the answer is always no. So in this case, basically aggregating from this graph, every app connected to one of your main tools, Microsoft, Google, app to app, Slack, Zoom, Salesforce, etc. And then filtering that, we have, in this case, an AI and machine learning algorithm that we trained over tens of thousands of apps to automatically understand what is this app, what is the risk based on permissions, in order to be able to filter and prioritize. In this case, I want to know every AI app I have in the company, and within a few seconds and a few clicks, I get, in this case, 26 different apps with a list of permissions and who is using them. Okay, what is it connected to? So basically everything I need to know in order to take decisions, and obviously one click deeper gets me the details of that application, who is using it, what are the permissions, etc. the same thing we're doing for posture and compliance, for the app governance, as you saw now, for the identity access, as you saw one example, and always, obviously, a list of controls that comes out of the box that allows actually seamless operation. How seamless? Usually we save about 70 to 80% time of the team compared to any other SSPM and SaaS security tool that we're using. Last portion here, posture. Again, the doors and windows of your SaaS tools. For example, you can allow in Salesforce to share every data publicly. Public mean exposed to the internet. You can allow login to try their password again and again and again, infinite number of tries, which means a bot could eventually break into your system. So there are dozens and dozens of checks into each one of those that automatically running through those processes and updating them and making sure they stay the same. Going back to MGM, with MGM configuration drift alert could say, ta-da, an admin is changing, in this case, it was his MFA. A new high privilege user admin was created for this system. An anomaly behavior was detected on the system, so each one of them could basically allow them to stop the attackers. I won't get into details unless you have more questions around it, but the concept is super simple. Connecting on metadata, read-only to those tools. It takes, the average is 5 to 8 minutes to onboard a new customer. Providing the value, connecting to the existing tools, like automation tools, SIEMs, etc., ticketing systems, in order to execute the outcome. Analyzed so far more than $100 billion interactions and thousands of different types of violations. So the system is very robust. Again, thanks to the AI behind the scenes. If you try to do it with manual work, there's no chance. So I'll stop after this slide and basically, just a short summary of the SaaS is growing in an exponential way in the last at least a year and a half. And the main reason it creates more value, the value is generated through those apps and especially the AI apps. The bad guys are starting to find it more and more. Regulation is still not there. So something needs to protect it. And we truly believe that this something is not going to be hiring 2 or 3 more people. It needs to be something completely different, like an AI and machine learning solution. So I'll stop here for questions. Thank you so much so far. How should we map? I'm just going over the questions.
Yeah, it for you, and then make sure that we've answered everyone. So Joss asks,
yeah,
how would you map the inventory of SaaS apps and data protection controls? And he gives some examples like SSO, MFA, monitoring, encryption, and a few others probably.
Yeah. So let me try to do something super challenging and go back in the slides.
1 second. Let me give you the control. There you go.
Thank you. So there are two steps here. One of them is that we connect through an API, read-only, metadata only, to the core. The core could be Microsoft collaboration, which is called the Microsoft Graph. It could be the Google Suite. It could be Okta, or the 3 of them. Through that, we understand most of those applications. And then drilling down on the posture, like you mentioned, SSO, MFA, encryption, then we have a dedicated integration, a dedicated API into those core apps. In this case, in this example, if you have a few examples like Zoom, Salesforce, Slack, Monday.com, GitHub, etc. So you have a few clicks, you connect with an API, you understand the provisioning, which is the configuration. We also take from there the logins to allow to understand the access and the behavior. And then we aggregate all of that together in a graph to understand here is an app. It is connected to 20 additional apps. We added to the graph. It is connected to 105 people, and 3 of them are admins, and this is the configuration.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gidi.
Next question is, 1 second. Okay, another one by Joss. 1 second.
There's another one also in the chat window, not in the Q&A.
1 second. So how can we obtain visibility into the business processes and sensitive data that are under attack?
Yeah, so that's a great question.
It's like missing backup or backup under attack. I mean, someone, wrongly or unauthorizedly trying to access it.
Yeah. So this is a great question, because in order to do that, you need first and foremost to understand what is an attack vector. You need to then map it out into specific controls. For example, you do 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4, and then you have to set these controls and to get alerts in real time. So a part of what we do here, we have a dedicated team that is basically taking those attack vectors. By the way, some of them are also being published by the vendors. For example, Okta, 6 months before the MGM, they published a list of checks. These are the things you should do in order to prevent, guess what, this MGM attack. So sometimes it's coming from the vendors. Sometimes we explore it by ourselves or implement attack vectors into policies. And then we can detect in near real time a list of activities that could impact something very, very bad. Let me give you an example from the last few weeks. Again, from one of the customers, we detected that someone is trying to do factory reset for the Okta. Factory reset for the Okta, for those who are not in the details, is basically forget everything. Everybody can have access to everything. Good luck. Which is not recommended. Let's put it that way. We detected it. It could come from a mistake, and it could come from a starting of attack vector that then doing other things. So first, nobody logged into Okta and it wasn't factory reset. The team saw it in near real time and basically stopped it. It was someone that is basically trying to do something with the Okta service people that mistakenly almost resetted the entire Okta. Okay, so the same thing you do for attacks.
I'll try to also add, maybe it's related to some other types of products, Joss. For example, when you speak about backup, again, you gave it as an example, so it really depends. If it's a backup of SaaS, so again, the vendor is supposed to back it up. In a second, I'll ask you something else, Ofer, about that one. But for IaaS and PaaS, obviously you have the CSPMs that basically can monitor whether your workloads or buckets or managed databases are installed or not. In this case, it's for SaaS, not for infrastructure or platform. So, but let me ask you, Ofer, about that one and take it further, take Josh's question further. For example, Salesforce provides you built-in backup. So if their servers are going down, if their data centers are burning to, I don't know, whatever, they supposed to restore your data from scratch. But what if one of your users, an angry salesman or someone stupidly did it, or an hacker tries now to delete all the contacts, all the leads that you have on Salesforce? Do you have, for example, a way to see that a mass download or a mass deletion, bulk actions, things like this are happening, and either stop them or at least trigger immediate alert?
The answer is yes, and also depends on the app and the API they expose. So in Salesforce specifically, you have one element is snooping on data. Again, terrifying statistics from the US, 70% of people leaving the company take some data from Salesforce before they leave. Obviously, they don't steal anything. They just want to be better in the next company. So one thing is snooping on data. I access, shut it down, access, shut it down. It's called snooping. Massively, a lot of times leaving employees, and then deleting data, downloading data. So all of those things are tracked again, depending on the API. In Salesforce specifically, you can see most of it on Microsoft, on Google, and others. And then you can get a near real-time alert to understand what's happening, investigate, and take action.
Another question, and then again, that might be relevant to the one that you currently answered. Can you expand more on how SaaS apps used by the organization are discovered? So basically, I assume that the question is, how do you connect, how do you discover all the apps, and whether you can actually integrate with all of them, or bring information from all of them?
Perfect. Can you give me access again, please? So
Yes,
I'm just going a few slides back. Thank you. So let's go to this one. So the way we do it, let's take a company. Most of the big organizations, they have Microsoft. Some of them have Google as well. The numbers in the market today is 83-17. And then let's say you have Slack and Salesforce, and obviously you have others. Okay. So we connect with an API to Microsoft and with an API to Google. Again, it's a read-only, metadata only. I do not write anything. We get all of the logins, all of the apps that are listed in SSO, in single sign-on, to these apps. In this case, 451 on Microsoft, and 350 that you see here on Google. Then we also go to the next level and ask Salesforce, do you have applications that are connected directly to you? And we add them. The same for every other app. And now we aggregate all of that together. And by adding it together, you get either applications that formally you got a request from to IT, this app was approved, and you are using Figma as part of your work. Great. Connected to your Microsoft, all good. But also applications that as a salesperson, I don't care about IT, I just connected it to Salesforce, I asked nobody. And also applications that through an email and password, I went into OpenAI and say, Ofer at Reco, and this is my password. It's called Shadow IT. So all of them together are aggregated in one place. And then we run an algorithm on top of them to ask, what is this app? What are the permissions this app is taking from Microsoft or Google? Reading files, writing data, sending emails, etc. And assess the risk accordingly.
Peter asks also, how do one create SaaS apps? But I assume in this case, not create like how to develop a SaaS application, but how to connect to it. So again, you mentioned it before. And can you say something about the coverage in general? I mean, does your and other SSPM in general, I mean, does it mean, or do you have to cover everything, even any, basic regular SaaS, or only those that are really, really important, like GitHub, Salesforce, etc.? So what could be even the approach when, implementing or when choosing SSPM?
So that's a great point. And actually there is an AI layer here as well, a layer angle as well. So there are a few layers. First, you should understand everything you have, which could be tens of thousands of apps through the process I just mentioned. Now I have, let's say 10, maybe 20 core apps, ServiceNow, Salesforce, etc., that I need to connect to. And each company, a lot of times you hear, oh yes, but I'm using this app, which is pretty rare, and I'm using this app. There's no chance for any company to have tens of thousands of integrations to all of them. So we just launched it a few weeks ago. We call it the Application Factory, which is allowing no-code integration on our end, that integrations into a new app that took between 2 to 3 months before that. The average now is between 1 to 2 days. And a very, very complex app takes between 1 to 2 weeks. So basically, you start with everything you need. Yeah, go ahead. You wanted to ask something?
So is it something that the end user needs to work on it, or is it something that you still need to provide?
We provide those integrations as those icons connecting the APIs. The great news is that first, you have between 5 to 20 core apps in a normal organization that are really important. And then you have this long tail. And dealing with that, with this new no-code integration on our end, allows to say, oh, you need this? No worries. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll have it by next week. So even if there's something that is missing, it's really easy to implement.
So to continue my question, or the elaboration on the question that Peter asked, I'm currently working on my own SSPM project, let's say. Basically, what you're saying is that I first need to discover what are the SaaS platforms that I have and choose what are the core SaaS platforms that I'm using, or define what should be the core systems and choose accordingly. Either choose those SSPM platforms that are covering those, those ones, or assume that, all the players are covering the main ones. So that's so far so good. Moving on to the small ones, the one, those that are maybe not so relevant or not so core, but I'm still worried about because that's what I have. The thing is either a matter of you should let go, you don't have to really cover 100% of the things, or choose wisely the solutions that can even cover those even partially. I mean, what should be the approach?
Don't let go so easy. The first thing, understand, is it risky? Should you care? Let's put it that way. And the answer to should you care starts with what level of risk you have. For example, as you have here, the risk is high for Relay. What level of risk you have and who is using it? If the entire top management, we have a dedicated tab of VIP. If the entire top management is using it and they're using it for the board, and this is extremely important, even if you have high risk and 10 users, you will not remove this app. So you need to have governance. So you take these decisions, either because you know that you are storing very important data in these apps, great. Or you go through this list and by the risk level and by who is using it, you decide, I want to add these apps into those core apps to take the list of provisioning and basically posture checks and compliance.
Now, another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another question that I have, I just saw another one that is popping up, but let me ask mine first, so I won't forget about it. In cloud security, there is something, and Moshe would probably agree with me, some concept called shared responsibility. Unlike the old R&R, roles and responsibilities that are within the organization, usually when using cloud, whether it's IaaS, SaaS, or PaaS, you have shared responsibility. Now, we all know that, or we all understand that part of the responsibility, for example, the resiliency of the platform is on the SaaS provider, obviously. Whether they do it on their own, they are using a decent IaaS or PaaS, whatever the case is, we trust them. Is there a way, reason, a need to actually map all the shared responsibilities that I have between me and, let's say, Salesforce, and then sit together with the SSPM platform provider and realize whether they fully cover the shared responsibility, my part of the shared responsibility, or is it something that you do? Basically,
yes,
whenever
so this is, yeah, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
So that's basically the question. Is it something that I'm supposed to do? I mean, in the shared responsibility between me and Reco, should I expect Reco to do the shared responsibility mapping and figure out what needs to be covered by Reco for me? Or is it something that I should do?
So the simple answer is that we do it, and we do it in a very simple way. We have a very methodical approach of implementation plan, because the vast majority of the companies we work with, they are not experts on SaaS. So we are the experts. That's why we are here, and we have an implementation plan. And the tricky stuff is, technically, you're right. I should trust Oracle and Salesforce and Workday and ServiceNow. Do your job. And it's not that they don't care. There's a limit of what they can do. Then there's a limit that costs a lot of money. For example, Shield on Salesforce, and you have other examples. And then this is only one tool. But I have so many, and I don't have the bandwidth and the people to just focus on Salesforce, and another person just focusing on Workday, and another one on NetSuite. So you need something to aggregate it for you, prioritize, and lower the risk as well as the low workload.
I see. Okay, so there is another question by Joss, but I think we will leave it, Joss, for Tal to answer. Again, I already spoke with the panelists before, and anything. So basically, Joss's question is about anomaly detection or alerting or anomalies based on based on what we used to call also ITDR or identity threat detection and response. He called it in this case user defined detect and respond. And again, Tal will obviously elaborate on that one is in his part. So stay tuned to the end till the end of the webinar. I trust that you will learn much more about it.
Yeah.
So.
But by the way, I can answer on how it looks like, but it's more interesting to understand why and the behind the scenes, and Tal will elaborate.
So go ahead, give your schneckel, give your 2 cents.
No, the simple answer is yes. That's exactly what it does. So it analyzes anomaly behavior, in basically learning, comparing person to himself, person to his team members, to the company, and to the baseline we have through this graph and the vast majority of basic so many different connectors. And how to do it in the AI and machine learning, this is exactly what Tal is going to explain.
Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Moshe.
Please feel free to contact me or us through the website or directly. Happy to answer more questions and to me directly. Thank you.
Excellent.